Tonight I'd like to talk on the importance of the Buddha's discourses. Now, why I'd like to talk about the importance of the Buddha's discourses is, firstly, there is one sutta in the Samyutta Nikaya, number 20.7, where the Buddha gave a warning. The Buddha said, in the future, people would not want to listen to the discourses of the Buddha, to master the discourses of the Buddha, to understand the discourses of the Buddha, which deal with emptiness. Instead, they would want to listen to the discourses of disciples, that means later monks, and which are what the Buddha calls alien, like outside the Buddha's teachings, and think that these should be mastered. And because people have no interest in the discourses of the Buddha, the suttas, that will slowly cause the disappearance of the suttas. For example, nowadays, people talk about the Tripitaka or Tipitaka, whereas in the Buddha's discourses, you find that the Buddha mentioned that his teachings are called Dhamma Vinaya. And in the Anguttara Nikaya 4.180, I think, the Buddha said, when he mentions Dhamma, he refers to the suttas. And nowadays, there are a lot of other books where people want to study, and not the suttas themselves. And so, that is not good, because slowly that will cause a disappearance of the suttas, one thing. Secondly, they have a wrong understanding of the Dhamma, because the Buddha calls the Dhamma the Sat Dhamma. Sat Dhamma means true Dhamma. And the true Dhamma refers to the earliest original discourses of the Buddha, namely the four Nikayas, the Digha Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya, Samyutta Nikaya, and Anguttara Nikaya. And the reason we believe these to be the original discourses of the Buddha is because they are very consistent. You do not find contradictions in them. Whereas if you study other books and you go through them in detail, if you take the trouble, you'll find there is always some small discrepancy, something that contradicts the four original Nikayas. And because of that, it creates wrong views. So that is one sutta I just mentioned. Another one is in the Digha Nikaya, Sutta number 16, Mahaparinibbana Sutta. The Buddha was about to pass away, and I think Venerable Ananda asked the Buddha, he said, Bhagava, after you have passed away into Nibbana, whom should we take as our teacher? And the Buddha said, take the Dhamma Vinaya as your teacher. That's a very important statement, the Buddha said. Take the Dhamma Vinaya as our teacher. And because a lot of people, a lot of Buddhists, have not probably heard this before, or the significance of it has not sunk into their mind, they go around looking for teachers, go around looking for master. I'm very proud my master is so-and-so, some world famous teacher, going sometimes halfway around the world or all around the world, chasing after teachers and masters. And this creates personality cults. And they like to rely on the goodness of their master. So they think, and sometimes I've seen, sometimes people, they follow a certain master instead of trying to follow the Dhamma Vinaya. And after many years, one day their master passed away. And after their master had passed away, they are left empty, high and dry. They have not obtained the taste of the Dhamma, obtained the essence of the Dhamma. And so they find after many years they have not made much progress. So we must always remember that the Dhamma Vinaya is our teacher. About 100 years after the Buddha passed into Nibbana, there was some conflict between the monks. And so the second Sangha Council was called to resolve the conflict. There were 10 points disputed. And one of the points was that should we always follow the advice of our teacher? That means what our teacher instructs us. Should we follow that? And it was decided that if the teacher, the monk, teaches you according to the Buddha's teachings, that means the 4 Nikayas and the Vinaya, you follow his words. But if he teaches something which is contradictory to the Buddha's teachings in the suttas and the Vinaya, then you don't listen to him. That means only the Buddha is our teacher. It is quite definite, quite clear. So because of that, you have to become familiar with the suttas. If you are not familiar with the suttas, when you listen to whatever monk, any teacher teaches you, you don't know whether it is according to the Buddha's teachings or not, right? That is why you have to make the Dhamma Vinaya as your teacher. In the suttas, the Buddha calls a monk a Kalyana Mitta. Kalyana is good, Mitta is a friend. So a monk is a good friend who introduces you to the Buddha's teachings. But you have to take refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. Right? Always take refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. But nowadays, people have added a 4th refuge. That is taking refuge in a monk, a teacher. But that was not the Buddha's teachings. It's very clear. In the suttas, there was an Arahant. And he was very impressive. He was teaching some lay people. And the lay person was so impressed by the Arahant. He asked to take refuge with the Arahant. And the Arahant said, no, you cannot take refuge with me. You must only take refuge with the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. Then he said, where is the Buddha? I want to go and take refuge with him. And the Arahant said, the Buddha has passed into Nibbana. And yet, even when the Buddha has passed into Nibbana, we still take refuge with the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. Right? That shows that we always acknowledge the Buddha as our teacher and the Dhamma as the teachings. The Sangha is the Arya Sangha referred here, but it's very difficult to differentiate between an Arya and a non-Arya. So don't rely on hearsay. People say, oh, this monk is such and such a famous monk. How many fruitions and all that, how many attainments he has got and all that. It's very unreliable. And there is a sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya 5.88 where the Buddha said it is possible that a very world-renowned monk, a very senior monk, very well-known monk with a great following of disciples, both lay people and monk and non-disciples. And that monk can be very learned in the scriptures. And yet, such a world-famous monk with a great following and very learned can have wrong view. It is stated. So don't think that such and such a monk is so famous, everybody respects him and even thinks that he's an Arahant or an Anagami or something, that whatever he teaches must necessarily be correct. The Buddha already gave the warning because he saw that even such monks can have wrong view. So the only thing that you can rely on is the suttas and make that your teacher and other monks as just a good friend. The details of the sutta in the Sutta Pitaka, nowadays we have 5 Nikayas. 5 Nikaya. Nikaya means a collection. The first 4 are the original Nikayas. The first one is Digha Nikaya, consisting of 3 books. These are the long discourses of the Buddha in 3 books. The second one is Majjhima Nikaya, the collection of medium-length discourses, also 3 books. The third one is the Sangyutta Nikaya, short discourses 2,000 short discourses, about 2,000. And there are 5 books. And the 4th one is Anguttara Nikaya, also 5 books, also short discourses, about 2,000. And the 5th Nikaya is called the Khuddaka Nikaya. Khuddaka means minor. So it's a minor collection, a small collection. Unfortunately, they have been adding books to that collection over the years, so that he has grown and become 15 books. There are 15 books according to Thailand and Sri Lanka. However, in 1956, when Burma held the 6th Sangha Council, according to them, and they added another 3 books into the Khuddaka Nikaya, which they knew, and other people knew, are not the Buddha's teachings. And they added these 3 other books. One is Melinda Panha, another is Petako Padesa, I think. Another one I forgot. But anyway, from there you can see why the Khuddaka Nikaya has grown so much. From a minor collection, it has become the major collection. Out of the 15 books, about 5 are reliable. About 5 do not contradict the early 4 Nikayas. Books like the Dhammapada, Sutta Nipata, Iti-Vuttaka, Udana, and Theragata, Therigata, I think. So, other than that, other books are questionable. So, we should be, as Buddhists, we should be familiar with the suttas, and if you can afford it, you should get a copy of the books, because you seldom see a Muslim without a Quran, right? Seldom see a Christian without a Bible, right? But you see many Buddhists without the Nikayas. A bit malu, a bit shameful, call ourselves Buddhists. In the Samyutta Nikaya, Sutta number 16.13, the Buddha gave a warning. The Buddha said that the true Dhamma will remain unadulterated for 500 years after his passing away. But after that, the true Dhamma, the Dhamma will become adulterated. And then, when the Dhamma becomes adulterated, the Buddha said it will be very difficult to distinguish the true teachings from the false teachings. Why? Because if you study some of these books, you find there's a lot of Dhamma in there. Unfortunately, they add some Adhamma. Adhamma means what is contrary to Dhamma. They add a little bit here and there. And unless you are very sharp, unless you know the original 4 Nikayas, the original teachings very well, you find it very difficult to distinguish the later books from the earlier books. That is why the Buddha said, at the moment, the Buddha said, people still want to buy gold because only pure gold is sold in the market. But one day, the Buddha said, people will make counterfeit gold, false gold. And when that happens, and people sell counterfeit gold in the market, people will become scared, because it will be very difficult to distinguish the real gold from the false gold, because they make it so well that people find it so difficult to distinguish. When that happens, people will not want to buy gold. Why? Because you are afraid that you might buy counterfeit gold. So in the same way, the Buddha said, in the future, the Dhamma will become polluted. And when that happens, it will be very difficult to distinguish between the true Dhamma from the false Dhamma. And so because of that, we have to take the trouble to find out which is the true Dhamma. If you believe in me, then from my experience, I would say that the earliest 4 Nikayas are the original teachings of the Buddha, because they are very consistent. They do not have contradictions. Now we know that the path taught by the Buddha for us to get out of samsara is the Aryan Eightfold Path, right? And in the Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta number 117, it is stated that the Aryan Eightfold Path must always start with right view. If you do not have right view, you have not entered upon the path. And when you have right view, then you have stepped into the path. And right view, according to the sutta, will lead you to have right thoughts, the second factor. And right thoughts will lead you to have right speech. And right speech will lead you to have right action. Right action will lead you to have right livelihood. And right livelihood will lead you to right effort. And that will lead you to right mindfulness. And that will lead you to right concentration. So one by one, these factors of the Aryan Eightfold Path are cultivated. And in the Anguttara Nikaya 4.20.196, it is stated that a person with right view understands the four Aryan truths. Now this understanding of the four Aryan truths, if a person fully understands the four Aryan truths, he becomes an Arahant or a Buddha, Sammasambuddha or Pacceka Buddha. Now, even with a shallow understanding of the four Aryan truths, one becomes an Arya. That is why right view, which brings on an understanding of the four Aryan truths, shows that right view itself is already the first stage, the Sotapanna stage. So right view is very important. The first thing you must acquire if you want to practice the Aryan Eightfold Path is to have right view. Now, how do you attain right view? That's a very good question. In the Majjhima Nikaya, number 43, it is stated that only two conditions to attain right view. The first one is to listen to Dhamma. That means to listen to the discourses of the Buddha. The second condition is having proper attention, yoniso manasikara, or thorough attention, or thorough consideration. The Buddha's disciples were called Savakas by the Buddha. Savaka means a listener, a hearer. So you find why the Buddha stressed on this word Savaka. That means he stressed on the Buddha, on the disciples listening to the discourses. So we find in the suttas and in the Vinaya books that people became Sotapanna by listening to the Buddha's discourses. And we have the Buddha's discourses exactly as he spoke the discourses now in our books. So we are very fortunate. When we study the discourses in the books, in the four Nikayas, it is like sitting next to the Buddha and listening to the Buddha. So that's why we must avail ourselves of this opportunity to study the Nikayas. I think I've mentioned before, the Buddha said that he looked into the past 91 world cycles, 91 kappa, and he found only 6 Buddhas appeared. Meaning to say that it takes more than 10 world cycles for a Buddha to appear. So rare is a Sammasambuddha. And now we are living in the age of the Dhamma. In fact, it is as good as living during the time of the Buddha. In fact, if you live during the time of the Buddha, you still won't be able to hear as many suttas as you are able to now, Why? Because the books are available, and there are about 5,000 suttas available to us. Whereas if you live during the time of the Buddha, you find that the Buddha stayed in one place for a short while and then he goes away again. And he always goes, usually he goes by himself, sometimes with his monk disciples. So you can't stay with the Buddha very long. The longest the Buddha stayed in one place is during the rainy season. And he stayed in one place for 4 months at the longest. And then he start traveling again. So in 4 months, how many suttas do you expect to hear? Definitely not as many as are available nowadays in the 4 Nikayas that we have. So, now the other thing I'd like to mention is there is one sutta, Samyutta Nikaya 46.4.8, where the Buddha said, when one listens to Dhamma attentively, at that time, the 5 hindrances exist not. And the 7 bojjhanga, the 7 factors of enlightenment are complete. Meaning to say that these are the conditions for becoming an Arya, the 5 hindrances are not there. And the 7 factors of enlightenment, 7 bojjhanga are complete in you. So it shows that when one listens to Dhamma with attention, you can become an Arya. Now the word Sotapanna consists of two words, sota and apana. Sota can mean a stream, and it can also mean ear, E-A-R, ear. And apana means entered. So normally people translate the word sotapanna as stream enterer, but it can also mean an ear enterer. That means the ear has been penetrated by Dhamma, right? And if you look into the suttas, that is probably the more correct translation, because the Buddha's disciples are called savakas, listeners, and they have understood the Dhamma. Now, there is one sutta that says the factors for attaining sotapanna is also called sotapatti yangani. There are 4 factors for you to attain sotapanna. First one, you have to associate with true men. True men means the people who understand the true Dhamma. So the first one, association with true men. The second one, hearing the true Dhamma. Okay, hearing the true Dhamma. The third one, having proper attention, yoniso manasikara, or thorough consideration. The fourth one, practice of Dhamma in accordance with Dhamma. That means living your life according to Dhamma. That means keeping the precepts and all that. So you see, the factors for attaining sotapanna, association with true men, hearing the true Dhamma. This is the important point. Third one, having proper attention. This is also another important point. And then living according to Dhamma. So from here again, you find it is more probable sotapanna is attained by listening to the Dhamma. In the Anguttara Nikaya 4.180, the Buddha said, if any monk says that such and such is the teaching of the Buddha, then without scorning his words and without welcoming his words, you should compare what he says to be the true teachings of the Buddha with the suttas and the Vinaya books. Now Vinaya books don't concern lay people, so you're only concerned with the suttas lah. So whenever anybody says such and such is the teachings of the Buddha, you should always compare it with the suttas. That is why you need a good understanding of the suttas. Then you can differentiate between a teacher who teaches the true Dhamma and a teacher who has wrong view lah. Now there's one sutta, Anguttara Nikaya 3.85, and another one, 9.12, also Anguttara Nikaya, where the Buddha said, a sotapanna and a sakadagamin have perfect sila. Sotapanna and sakadagamin are the first and the second fruitions of the Aryas, with the first and second fruitions. They have perfect sila, perfect moral conduct. Anagamin, the third stage, they have perfect sila and perfect samadhi. And arahants have perfect sila, perfect samadhi, and perfect panya. That means perfect moral conduct, concentration, and wisdom. So you find from these two suttas that the anagamin, the third stage, and the arahants, the fourth stage, they must have perfect concentration to attain that. That is why you know that anagamins are reborn in the fourth jhana plane, right? All anagamins, most of the anagamins, some can also be reborn in the arupa jhana realm, but most of them are reborn in the fourth jhana plane, which shows that anagamins generally have 4 jhanas, and arahants also. But the interesting part here is that the sotapanna and the sakadagamin, they don't have perfect samadhi. That means they don't need jhana. You don't need jhana to become a sotapanna and sakadagamin. Now the difference between the sotapanna and sakadagamin is that the sakadagamin have reduced the greed, hatred, and delusion. Right? Now to reduce the greed, hatred, and delusion, you need a certain amount of samadhi. Because greed, hatred, and delusion are connected with the 5 hindrances. The first hindrance is sensual desire. It's a kind of greed. And the second hindrance is ill will or anger. And that is related to hatred. So greed, hatred, and delusion if they are reduced, that means that person has a certain amount of samadhi, not perfect, but a certain amount of samadhi. So the Sotapanna has not reduced his greed, hatred and delusion, you see, unlike the Sakadagami. So that is why it further corroborates the view or the belief that the Sotapanna only listens to the Dhamma and attains Sotapanna. Now, in Sangyutta Nikaya 55.1.2, it is mentioned that the characteristics of a Sotapanna are 4. First one, he has unshakable faith in the Buddha. Second, he has unshakable faith in the Dhamma. Third, he has unshakable faith in the Sangha. And the fourth one, he has perfect virtue. Perfect virtue. So these are the characteristics of a Sotapanna. No mention of meditation. Now, in Anguttara Nikaya 3.9.85, it is said that all Aryas can still have minor transgressions of the precepts. Even though it is stated that they have perfect virtue, it does not preclude minor transgressions of the precepts. For example, in the Sangyutta Nikaya 55.3.4, there is a mention of a Sakyan by the name of Sarakani. And this man, Sarakani, passed away. And when Sarakani passed away, people came to ask the Buddha, where has Sarakani taken rebirth? And the Buddha said something to the effect that don't worry about Sarakani. Sarakani has already become Sotapanna. And when the word went around that the Buddha said that Sarakani was a Sotapanna, it seems that some people got very annoyed. Why? Because they said that Sarakani failed in the training and took to drink. Failed in the training, according to the commentaries, means that he failed in the training of a monk. That means Sarakani used to be a monk, and then he disrobed. Okay? And then the second point was that he took to drink. The fact that the people got angry with the Buddha because Sarakani took to drink and the Buddha called him a Sotapanna meant that Sarakani probably did not take a little drink. He probably took quite a lot of drink. So because he drank quite a lot and people saw that he drank quite a lot, so people found it hard to believe that he was a Sotapanna. So that shows that the state of a Sotapanna is not as high as some people think. Now, in another sutta, Majjhima Nikaya number 14, a cousin of the Buddha by the name of Mahanama came to see the Buddha, and he said something to the Buddha to the effect of, Bhagava, Lord, he said, for a long time I've studied the Dhamma, and I know that greed, hatred and delusion are defilements of the mind. And even though I know that greed, hatred and delusion are defilements of the mind, sometimes I can't help it. Greed, hatred and delusion control my mind, and I'm led astray by greed, hatred and delusion. And then he asked the Buddha, is there some quality I have not cultivated yet which makes me be led astray by greed, hatred and delusion? Mahanama asked the Buddha whether there was some quality he had not cultivated that made him still be led astray by greed, hatred and delusion. And the Buddha said, yes. The Buddha said that even if an Aryan disciple has seen with wisdom that greed, hatred and delusion, that sensual desire is wrong, yet unless he has attained piti and sukha, delight and happiness, he will still be led astray by sensual desire. Now this piti and sukha, delight and happiness, are two factors of the state of jhana, the state of concentration. Jhana can be translated as a state of mental incandescence, and the mind becomes bright because it is so concentrated and one-pointed. And so unless we attain one-pointedness of mind and experience a bliss which is higher than sensual desire, we can't help but be led astray, become a slave of sensual desire. So now according to the commentaries, Mahanama, this cousin of the Buddha, was already a Sakadagamin at that time when he said this. But I have some doubts, because he said that he is led astray by greed, hatred and delusion. Probably means that his greed, hatred and delusion are not reduced. Now in a Sakadagamin, the greed, hatred and delusion are reduced. But since he's still led astray by greed, hatred and delusion, probably he's only a Sotapanna. You see? So that again shows that the state of a Sotapanna is not as high as some people think. It's just listening to the teachings of the Buddha and having a shallow understanding of the four Aryan truths. This teaching about the four Aryan truths is a very powerful teaching. If you know that life is suffering and there is a way out of suffering, and the fact that we can see that our life is very limited. As a human being, you know that on the average, you live up to 70 years of age, right? Now, so you can see the number of years you have left is very limited, and you can really see impermanence. That is why human beings they tend to be able to cultivate the spiritual path because of that fact that we see impermanence. Whereas if you are a deva, you have so much blessings, but you don't see impermanence because your lifespan is in terms of millions of years. And if you are in the woeful planes, you see impermanence, but you don't have the blessing to cultivate, right? When you're hungry all the time, you don't think of cultivation, you must think of how to find something to satisfy your hunger, isn't it? So it's only the humans that have this capacity to cultivate the holy life. So the point here is that Sotapanna is not so high as some people think. We need to learn the suttas and have understand that there is a way out of samsara. And once you know that there is a way out of samsara, you will naturally turn your direction in that towards that path. So slowly you will enter upon that path and finally escape from the samsara, the round of rebirths.